Hello, work life warriors. I hope you're doing well. Today, I wanted to have a very honest conversation. It will be a little different. It will be a very vulnerable and transparent conversation. I want to talk about what it's like to be, someone like me, what the society deems a rebel, a troublemaker, difficult, when really I can't speak for all rebels, troublemaker, rebel roosters, rebel roosers, mischief makers. I can't speak for all of them, but for me in particular, I don't consider myself to be any of those things. I'm just being authentically me, which sometimes may clash with society's expectations of who they think I should be or how I should show up. So this message is really for anyone who chose the harder path and decided to show up authentic in life. So, um, my favorite books are Who Moved My Cheese and I Moved My Cheese. And one of in particular, the book I Moved My Cheese, there was a character named Max. And I see a lot of myself in the character Max. And when I was 6 years old, I started, which is the normal age where children start asking a lot of questions. They want to know what's going on. They become more aware and they want to try to figure it out on their own. So around 6, I started to ask questions to all the adults around me, like really serious, deep questions, questions in religions, questions in politics, questions in human interactions. I started to ask really, really deep questions. And so did Max in the book who I Move My Cheese. He asked questions and he started to ask around and he realized that a lot of people did not really understand what they knew. They knew a lot of everything, but they really didn't understand it. So just like him, I asked around. I talked to a lot of my elders. I spoke to people in the community, the teachers. And to me, I just came to the understanding like, oh, if I didn't want the type of life or the type of mindset that you have, then I wouldn't take your advice. I wasn't rude or anything. I just wouldn't take your advice. And I never had a problem with like speaking up for myself. That was always just natural for me to speak up, for myself. So I started asking questions and they didn't have answers. And so I was just like, oh, I'll just continue to seek those who have the mindset or at least, can get me where I want to go or is the next stepping stone in my journey. Like if the person didn't make me feel good, if they weren't affirming me showing up being my best self, giving my best, expanding, growing, developing, if they weren't, affirming me and saying positive things to me, I tend to stay away. And what I realized early is when you're young, and you begin to ask questions to adults who never considered what you're what you're asking them, it embarrasses them. And if they don't understand, it embarrasses them. And depending on what type of person it is, they may, project. It could turn into a hostile situation. They can call you a small aleck, or you think you know it all, you're too grown, and say really negative things to you when you're just trying to understand. You're a child in the world trying to understand. And so a lot of times, especially in elementary schools, there are a lot of inquisitive children and they're constantly asking questions, but it's only one teacher to 25 children or more. And so if every, student, if the teacher is trying to teach a lesson and every student has a question, that can take the entire class without the teacher teaching a lesson. And so questions are really discouraged. You don't really get a good response from questioning adults, especially questions that are out of scope or they hadn't really thought of before. It's kind of dangerous because depending on the individual and their character and how they worked on themselves, it can trigger their ego and it can be very bad for the child involved. Um, So just like, any normal kid who is asking questions and the questions are ignored, or they're sent a message that their questions are not welcome, or that it's out of place, or it's inappropriate, or it's not in line, or how we do things around here, they'll stop asking. And most, children stop asking questions. They get embarrassed. They, don't want to be the center of attention. Many people have the same question, but people are afraid to ask. And we know that of our society. People will be given information or assignment or told what to do, and they don't really know, but they're afraid to ask the question. So they'll just kind of, wiggle around it or do whatever. It doesn't really serve. So yes, people are afraid to ask questions, so they stop asking questions. And in the book, Max talks about, like, yes, he realized that about, his peers, that they stopped asking, but he resolved that he wouldn't stop asking. He will spend his life asking because he wanted to know. The urge to know was higher than the urge not to be seen, or not to ask the question, or risk somebody saying something, or hurting your self-esteem or your pride, or so he continued to ask, and just like Max, that's me. I have no problem asking questions. I ask questions all the time, even if it's inconvenient. And I notice that people would get upset, and they would send me the message that something was wrong with me, that I was a troublemaker, that I was, I couldn't get right, that, I was difficult, just for asking questions. And then my intention was for understanding. So it just sent a really weird message. But I never stopped asking, because if you are inquisitive, I guess I'm just inquisitive and curious by nature. It was just in my personality to always continue to ask. And so I did that my whole life, and throughout life, in classes in particular, like as a child, I would have one teacher a year where I would say, I'm reading this book right now. It's called Anti-Fragility, and he talks about fragile, resilient, and anti, fragility. And this teacher was very fragile. So anytime I begin to, start asking questions just for understanding, so I can, do the assignment, it turned into a problem, and I will be sent to the principal office. So each year I would have one of those teachers. But the beautiful part, the funny part, is I would also have a beautiful example of an anti-fragile person in the same area. So for instance, in high school, all 4 years, I had a teacher that we just could not see eye to eye. I had questions. They did not want to answer the questions. So during their classes, a couple of times a week, I would have to go to the principal office, but the principal was an anti-fragile person. So they would counter the information that I would get in class, and I would never really get in trouble. It would kind of turn into like, not really a study session, but an opportunity for me to kind of just like breathe and think and relax and read and research and write. And it wasn't a punishment. It would just be like, okay, y'all don't get along, you could do the work down here. Or, for the most part, it was never about the work. I had already did it. But I would go down there and be able to like just be, and sometimes I could help around the office during those periods. And luckily for me, I had someone who understood that after fact, because they're anti-fragile, they would fact find and gather data and realize like, oh, it's just a matter of like, these types of questions are offensive to certain types of people. So you didn't really do anything wrong, but it's context. And again, I was a kid, so I wasn't necessarily understanding that. It's not until much later. But I would constantly get the message that something was wrong with me. I was a troublemaker. I was a bad teacher. It was like, she'll end up dead. She'll end up in jail. And for me, I always thought a troublemaker or somebody rebellious or, difficult was somebody that was out there selling drugs, doing crazy things, robbing people, murdering people, raping people, inward people, all that type of things. So I never considered myself to be those things. So I was getting missed messages like, hey, I don't really understand. Like, what am I doing so wrong? I'm just asking questions and I'm just taking up for me. Like, isn't that what we're supposed to do? Isn't that the whole point of like maturing? I don't really understand. So that was always the case. So even if it wasn't a teacher, sometimes it was a teacher, but sometimes it was a principal. Sometimes it was just an older mentor or an adult. But I always had someone who would kind of counter the fragile message that I was getting. So I always kind of had like this perfect blend of like fragile, and my family was resilient, and then anti-fragile. So in life, I got lucky because I feel like maybe a lot of those people that I named went a little further into their shadow side because they did not have examples. They didn't know to seek. They got the message early. They stopped asking questions, so they stopped seeking, and they didn't know to seek, to find, and they weren't as fortunate as me, who had different people who came around, who challenged my thinking, who realized like I wasn't a bad person. It just needed to be challenged and channeled differently than, other students. And so, again, I can totally understand, but I couldn't understand why I was also being grouped with them. So, again, as I went on to college, I started to try to like fit in and change myself and, try to like, not do the things that, would rock the boat because I wanted to be liked, I wanted to fit in. But then I started to realize like, oh, the more you do that, the less you like yourself, the less you like about yourself, the less you know about yourself, because you're just like a chameleon blending into whatever situation pops up, and that's no real integrity. And if you're going to move through life, you have to, live with some integrity, because you was changing, I guess just being yourself triggered certain fragile people. And as a response, because you don't want to hurt people's feelings, you try to change yourself. So every situation that you're in, you're a different person, or you're more aware of other people's feelings than you are your own feelings. A healthy, mature level is to balance the two. But at this point that I started to, betray myself for other people's feelings, and I would tune in to what people were feeling around me, and how can I blend in, and how can I be more like them. And I just wasn't feeling good. And then on top of, feeling good about myself, I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. I didn't like myself. Wasn't taking care of myself. I started to gain weight. I gained all of this weight. It was just really bad. And then so I'm doing all of this changing to myself, constantly shifting, changing, growing, shifting, changing, reading, growing, research, shifting, changing, just trying to be what people want me to be. And it was never enough. And then I realized like I'm doing all of this work, and I'm doing more work than they're doing. They're not doing any work. They just show up. If they're doing work, they're doing personality work. They're figuring out how to manipulate people. What type of personality manipulate people? What type of traits can I have that people like? It's not authentic. It's not genuine. And I realized like, oh, so I'm changing myself for these people. They're not really authentic. No one's working on themselves. Everybody's secretly miserable because everybody's trying to please everyone and nobody really likes anyone or themselves. And it just started blowing my mind. I was like, Ebony, there's 7 billion people on this planet. 7 billion people on this planet. Are you going to change who you are depending on whoever you're talking to in the moment? So throughout life, you may meet 5,000 people. Are you going to be 5,000 versions of yourself? And you don't really know what the other person wants. So really, you're just guessing. I do a lot of research. I study human nature. I read about the mind. So really, you're just guessing. And what you realize is that you're not really giving them what they want. You're giving them what they need to be comfortable, which isn't really helping anyone. And so I decided, like, I will stop making people comfortable. I will just be myself. I will be authentic. It's no way to please 7 billion people. My responsibility is to please myself, is to be authentic to myself, is to live a life that I love, that I can be proud of, and wake up every day excited about the things that I'm doing, who I like, who I would like to be, and how I'm working towards who I like to be, and how I show up every day and be the best person that I can be while I'm developing into the person that I want to be. And it's no guilt to live up to other people's standards, even if that means that they don't like me, even if that means they make it difficult for me, even if they means that they say things that may not be helpful or loving or peaceful. Again, just like when you were a child, these things are said to get you back in line, to get you to, stop asking questions. And I decided that I will live a curious life, and I will never stop asking questions, and I will never stop compromising who I am for other people, to make other people feel comfortable, to fit in, to make them feel great, to make them feel grand. If they are all those things, they do not need you to strength in order to feel those things. So I guess I should tell you about like this whole anti-fragility thing. As far as fragile, you just kind of think about something that's fragile, and they give the example of glass. When you are drinking out of glass, you know, most people who drink out of glass have been drinking out of, cups for a very long time. So if you're going to use a glass cup, it is because you are experienced. You don't give a glass cup to a child because they are inexperienced. They may drop it, they may bang it against the wall, they may break it. So you don't give a glass cup to, people who are inexperienced because they don't know how to work it. So therefore the glass is, fragile. What you do give to children are plastic cups, plastic sippy cups, something that if they drop, it doesn't break, but it also doesn't improve. So like you can give them a sippy cup and they could drop the sippy cup, but the sippy cup doesn't improve because it was dropped. So the sippy cup represents like, resiliency, because, it doesn't grow from the experience. And I would argue that what doesn't kill you creates resiliency, because resiliency is just unchanged. Like you don't change due to what's happened to you. So resiliency, if it doesn't kill you, it's just like the natural order of like what happens next. Like you become resilient, you harden, you stiffen. Like before, as a baby, you're soft, you explore, you touch things, but as you get painful experiences or painful events or painful things that happen to you, you try to avoid change and you tend to harden because of that. And so that's what I mean by resiliency. It's kind of natural. It's like, oh, to live, you got to get tough because, it's hard here. So resiliency is like being tough. And then anti-fragility is whatever is happening to you, or what has happened to you, got you to here, or what's happening to you will make you stronger. It is the idea that things are not happening to you, but they're happening for you. And so, you want all of the experiences in life to be happening for you and not against you. When you are a fragile person, it always feels like life is attacking you. So if someone asks a question that you already are, that topic, or whatever it is, maybe an experience, maybe a topic, maybe what you're going through, and you already feel some type of way about it, you're not strong in that type of topic or whatever it is, and someone asks a question about it, you can get offended, you can get triggered, because it's a sensitive spot for you, because you have not made it resilient or anti-fragile. And so that was a lot of what was going on. because everyone kept saying that I was the problem. I was like, okay, let me go ahead and do some research. Let me see what the research says about this. Am I really the problem? So I started seeing, doing some research into human nature to try to understand like why do people say I'm the problem when I'm only one, doing what's best for me, or two, asking questions. I had never did anything more than those two things. And I started to like dig in and try to understand why do they, why don't we value different opinions? Why do, we have to have the same mindset or the same ideas? And why are, the ideas that are the same, celebrated and rewarded, and ideas that are different, or people who are different, are kind of like punished and, labeled, negative terms like troublemaker, and, you know, and I just couldn't understand it. I was just like, oh, why? What is going on? So the research was just, talking. First, I started from more of a stress management point. It was just a matter of like programming. I wanted to know physically like what was happening. And I just realized like, oh, the mammal brain is just naturally negative. And you have to like work to program it not to be negative, because that's just natural. So it's some of the natural programming that we have going on. And then also human beings are like social animals, and we don't like to be alone, and to be outcast, feels like death to us. And it's one of our greatest fears, to be lonely. So a lot of individuals give up a lot of themselves to be, a part of the group. And especially when you lived off the land, it was vital to do so. But society has now moved us away from a lot of like the group dynamics, because you can survive individually on your own. You don't necessarily need like a nucleus family, or to group with other people. You can be an individual and kind of survive on your own without like ever grouping with other people. And again, that is now, it's an option now, but it wasn't an option back then. So again, when things are new, it's always kind of like different, and it's scary because people don't necessarily know it's hidden. And most importantly, people just resist change. People do not like change, even though change is inevitable. It's natural. It's the most natural thing that we go through. People do not like change. They like order. They like things to stay the same. And so when you show up different, or you pose a question that was out of scope, it's, now broadening their horizons, which makes the world a little bit bigger and scarier if they're also in that mindset of being fragile. And so I started doing, more research, and then just understanding it. And I understood it from that level. And then I moved, down to like, oh, okay, what do human beings fear? And understanding like, oh, they feel loneliness, but they also fear, success, because both of them, bring the same thing. Like success bring you isolation from the people that you love, or from, real connection. And so do loneliness. And so we're both afraid, of success and loneliness, and that people, bounce back between trying not to be lonely and, trying to obtain success, back and forth their whole life. And it's at the expense of like, oh, I don't want to be outcast. I'm afraid to be alone. But as I said, at 6, I started asking questions. I never stopped. And so asking a lot of questions make you a loner. But I wasn't a rude person, so I can be in any crowd. So even in high school, I never belonged to one particular crowd, but I could talk to anyone in any crowd and get along with them and have a good time and enjoy myself. I didn't have to belong to the crowd specifically to get the connection that I need with the crowd. And I guess I realized earlier on that what I really needed was like play, fun, and connection from the crowd. And so, I would go and get what I need, and I was okay with being alone. So I'm okay with the loneliness aspect. I actually enjoyed myself, and I realized like what I fear wasn't as bad as what I thought. Like, oh, I changed a lot of myself to fit in, fearing that I will be alone because I didn't like myself, that I was unlovable, I was unworthy, I was likable. Who could love me? And it's like once I started to pull up all of those things that weren't my voices, it was the messages that I was sent through, people in life who were fragile. They were giving me this message that I was fragile. Once I started to pull them up, I realized like, oh, I'm not these things. I don't have to accept these things. And I could just kind of like, you know, be worthy of being myself. I can fill my time with the things that I feel like makes me great, makes me feel good, that expand me, that helps me grow, that pushes me. And then so I just again continue to fill myself with this information, and the more and more I start to realize like, oh, we make a lot of things personal when it's not necessarily personal. Like most of the time when we're mistreated or people say negative things to us, we take it personally because we also have these trigger point sore spots, and so we already don't believe we're worthy, and we take it personally, and we think it's about us, but it's never about us. What they say and do is about them, and how you respond is on you. So a lot of times it's like we take these voices on and we don't even realize like these are not my voices. This is not what I think of myself. I'm afraid of being alone because of what other people have told me about myself. But actually, once I start doing the work, I start pulling up these roots. I like myself. And it doesn't mean alone or lonely means like that you don't ever go and connect with people, but by spending time alone and doing the work and pulling up all the roots, you realize you're really not unworthy of love. You're really not dislikable. You're actually a cool person. You actually are dope. You're a kind person. You're smart, you're funny, you're brilliant, you're witty, you're kind, you're all these things. And people were just projecting how they feel about themselves on you. And so then you get to show up in this world authentically yourself, and you begin to, as you continue to do the work, you begin to pull more and more away, more of those things away that were given to you that don't serve you, more of those negative thoughts, more of those negative perceptions, more of the negative mindset. You begin to chip away at it because it doesn't serve you, and you become more and more of yourself, and you begin to care more and more about your needs in the world and meeting your needs and satisfying other people's needs. Regardless of what they say to you, you don't take it personal because you realize it's not really about you. It's a projection. People don't really know you. You could be sleeping next to someone and you don't know their secret thoughts. People surprise people all the time and inward them or are them, and they've known them for years or laid next to them for years. So absolutely, like, you don't know people's secret thoughts, and you never will. So it's always your responsibility to live up to, to satisfy your needs, to take care of yourself, to be authentic. And so I started to think like, okay, so will I regret, making this decision? And then I picked up the book like 7 Effective Behaviors, and it talked about like reverse engineering or designing your life backwards. And so I started to think like, okay, so what do human beings at the end of their life regret mostly? Like, what do they regret? And a lot of them had, the same regrets, that they wish that they did more meaningful work. They wish they were open, vulnerable, transparent. They wish they had connected more. They wish they spent more time with their kids. They wish they spoke up for themselves more often. And I decided like, okay, if these are the regrets, I'll learn vicariously through them, and I'll make sure that I don't live a life of regrets. And if these are the things that they're thinking about at the end of their life, they must be extremely important. And I don't want to, get to the end of my life when I've seen other examples and do the same thing, have the same regrets, when obviously I know what the common, regrets are. So I started to like reverse engineer the person that I want to be, or the life that I want to have. And like when I'm in the at the end of my life, I'm not having the regrets of not trying, but having no regrets at all, or If I do have a regret, it's more so like I wish I was more mindful in the experience. I wish I would have enjoyed it more. I wish I would have, you know, in the moment, just be relaxed into it, smell it, taste it, feel it, like just be there outside my head, not in the future, not in the past. That will be my biggest, regret. Not that I didn't do something that I know I should have or wanted to, or pick me when no one else would pick me. So I kind of always gone through life with, I'm picking me, especially since, I realized. So again, another big part of that was that I had to fight for my freedom. So I'm grateful for it. And by fighting for my freedom, I mean, I was raised in a very, very strict household. I was raised as a Jehovah Witness, and it was just certain things that we couldn't do. So I started asking questions at 6 at a very young age. And then so when I realized, like, oh, they didn't, know as much, or they knew a lot, but they didn't understand it. um I was just like, oh well, it isn't for me. I still respect it. There are people who need it, and I believe in getting what you need, period, as long as you're not hurting somebody or making them do something against their will. And I mean physically hurting someone or making them do something to get you against their will. I believe doing, what makes you feel good. And so, yeah, I don't knock it. It wasn't for me. And so I started, to try to, put some distance in the middle of it. But my mom, she wouldn't let up. And so, again, if you don't know, on Sunday, about Jehovah Witness, Sunday is supposed to be a rest day. You're not really supposed to do anything. You're not supposed to go outside or anything. So I would argue all the time, like, why can't I go outside with my friends? I want to get 2 days off of school. Why do it have to be one of those days? Like, I go to school 5 days a week. Can it be one of those days? So I would argue, every Sunday I would make the case. I would debate with my mom on, can I just go out and play? I don't want, it doesn't serve me. I don't want it. And it started very early, like 6. And again, I would get better each argument. And again, it took 6 years because, of course, I'm a kid. But by 12, I had finally worn her out, or my argument was strong enough where I won out. And she was just like, okay, well, at this point, you're 12, don't want to force you. You've been saying this for a minute. I think that, you can go ahead and make your own decision. So I got my freedom. So those 6 years of me having to fight, to kind of put some distance in between that, really helped me to appreciate, my identity, or my authenticity. And then I also thought that it was cool, even though it took 6 years, I thought it was cool that I was able to do that. So I joined the debate team, and just got better with, debating. So that taught me a lot. And so I don't, give away my freedom so easily. I really cherish it. I cherish my time. I really cherish how I show up here. I give it my all. I'm authentic. I'm myself in all situations. As you can see, I do a lot of like changing my clothes and my hair and everything. But that's because, again, play is a big part of stress management and what I teach. And I realized that, as neotonius human beings, which is like forever juvenile, we are meant to play forever, unlike animals who reach a certain age and they just are, for the most part, unable to play. They don't play anymore. You see how the lion could try to play with daddy, and he just kind of like knocks him off because like he's unable to play. He's in protection mode. But human beings are allowed to play until they die. And so a big component of me is play, and I play based on how I feel. So anytime you see me regular, is a bad thing. When I go 2 and 3 days with being regular, without dressing up, dress up, playing in makeup, playing in wigs, playing in clothing, trying different looks, having fun. I'm an artist. I like to play. I like to have fun. If I go days without doing that, I worry about myself. So sometimes I may, dress crazy. I may have on a wig. I may paint my face. I may on tattoos, fake tattoos. I do all types of things because I honor the child in me. I really believe in being authentic and being the change you wanna see. And I really believe that any person who is serving a product or service to the world should do so. Should do so by living it, by practicing what they preach. It shouldn't be a matter of I'm selling this product to you and I don't use it, or I'm selling this service to you and I don't use it. I teach stress management and I live my stress management tips, tools, tricks, and techniques. Like I live them. I don't pick and choose like, oh, today it's a big meeting or I'm going to meet a client today. And so I'm going to tone it down to be accepted into society. And then I'm going to pop up later, looking. However, for me, it's a matter of you are referred to me, or we meet online, you see how my different moods are, or what, depending on how playful I am today. But just because I'm playful doesn't change what I have in my brain. I could be playful and professional. I could show up dressed up like an eagle and still deliver the same information that I in the same way that I would if I was in a business suit. So, but I practice what I preach. So if I'm in a playful mood when I wake up and I have a business meeting, I won't turn off my playful mood because society says that business is serious, especially since I'm bringing enjoyment and play into the workplace. Why would I turn off my playful mood because society doesn't deem it acceptable when play release stress and it helps build creativity, and it also helps you innovate, which all companies need innovation. You need creative people, you need playful people, you need the people who come to work and feel like they plan and they're not obligated to be here, because the people who are playing are the people who will make who will make innovation, who will help shape the world we live in. Those are the entrepreneurs and the artists that will create the new standards and the new realities that we live in. And so it's very important to be playful. And if I'm in a playful mood, I may show up in face paint and in a wig. If I feel that way, I may show up as in a rainbow costume. I may show up looking any type of way, but it isn't for anybody else. It's for me. It's because I refuse to live I refuse to live a fake life. I refuse to be inauthentic to me for the group, especially if what I'm doing doesn't hurt the group. It's actually not even the group's business how I relieve my stress, what I'm wearing, how I show up. If it doesn't affect them, it's not the group's business. And I don't make the comments on other people about how they show up and who they are. I allow people to be who they are, because it's very important to allow people to be who they are so that we can get the best benefits of that person. Society benefits when a person is at their best, not when a person is at their worst. And so using all this energy to produce, the same old standard, where you can use this energy to produce something creative, something authentic, something innovative that serves the world. And so for me, I made the decision, like, I will stay authentic. I don't want to have any regrets. Depending on how I feel, I may show up in my locks, I may show up in the wig, I may show up in the head wrap, I may show up in the hat, I may show up in the costume. And if your values don't align with my values, then win-win. We both go our separate ways. I don't win by trying to convince you that you need me. I only win if you believe I need to be here, if you believe I deserve to be here. I don't need to convince somebody why they need my services, why I need to be here, why I matter, why I'm valuable. I don't need to convince people that way. And I only want to be around people who already think those things about me. So when we come in, we come on even ground. I am not for everybody, and everybody is not for everybody. When we try to make people generic or for everybody, you water the beautiful uniqueness that makes them them. You try to water down their authentic self and make it like, something that's acceptable for the masses, something that they can consume easily. You make it consumable. And each experience should only be consumed by the person experiencing it. So when I dress up for my stress relief. And I get an added benefit when I make someone else smile, or when someone else laughs, or when people come up to me and they ask, how do you get the courage to do this? Does it work? It's so many things I really want to do for myself, but I know people will laugh at me and say negative things to me. And so I don't do it, and I wind up hurting myself, and I'm so stressed out, and I'm sick, and I'm diseased, and I'm ill, and I hate my life, and I hate getting up, and I feel a sense of dread, and I have panic, and all of these things, anxiety and depression, and all these things going on because I'm too busy pleasing others at the expense of myself. And I decided that I'm way too valuable, way too worthy to keep pleasing other people at the expense of myself. I am going someplace. I have a vision, I have a plan, and I've been working it ever since 12. There are people who actively try to stand in the way because I'm different. Not that what I'm doing is hurting them. It's not even their business. They actively trying to stay away. They stand in my way. They're not even like haters who just say nasty things about you. These people go out of their way to try to punish you to be from doing what you're doing, from being different, and to get back in line. They constantly send the message that something is wrong with you, and they will not tolerate any other message. Now, I have tolerated the message that something was wrong with me. As a matter of fact, I responded to it. I tried to change in so many different ways. I researched, I grew, I learned. I tried to figure out, what am I doing wrong? What am I saying? What? And I realized the problem was never me. And they, on the other hand, the person who wants you to do all of this change has not done any work on themselves professionally. No self-development, no personal mastery. They haven't done any work on themselves. And that is why they're requiring you to change, to make them feel comfortable. Because they are fragile, and in this situation, when you are making them feel comfortable, they realize and they see just how fragile they are. So to prove it to themselves that they're not fragile and the problem is not themselves, is you, they will try to invalidate you. They would try to disregard you, disrespect you. And I have it over and over and over, and they will continually try to send you to the principal office and tell you that the problem is you. And it took me 36 years to say, okay, the problem is me. And so, can I just be different? I'm not hurting anyone. I add positive joy, love to all situations. So, I don't really understand, why can't I just be me? I let you be you. People rarely stop. When you have a problem with the person who is different, you never consider that maybe they don't like what you got going on as well, but they hadn't said anything to you. They let you be. Why is it so hard just to let people be? Why do you have to go out of your way to punish people who are different, when the people who are different are the people who move the world forward? Why does it always have to feel like just to be in the room, you have to defend yourself? You have to, change who you are. And that's for all people, because even the people who want to gatekeep you, want to put you back in the box, they are not really happy. They don't really enjoy this experience. And they're trying to get you to feel like them. And I just refuse to keep making people comfortable at the expense of making myself uncomfortable. I am just going to be. And I will find the right people who want to be around me, who will help me grow, who will fan my fire, who will be good to me, because I'm good to people. I'm good to people. And good don't always mean that I tell you what you want to hear. Good also means that I help you grow and develop. I sharpen you because I want you to help sharpen me. And so the more I begin to be loyal to myself, to follow my own goals, dreams, and to develop myself, and to focus on positivity and the things that make me feel good and the people who make me feel good, the more I start to feel like myself, the more happy I become, the more I wake up excited every day to get up and do the things that I love, the more that throughout the week, 2, 3 times a week, I break out in gratitude tears where I'm just so happy to be here. I'm so happy to have this experience. I'm so happy to love myself, to go out into this world and interact with the world, to be curious, to explore, to learn something new. I thoroughly enjoy learning and growing and developing being here. I mean, I love it, and it doesn't mean that I always feel that way. It doesn't mean that I ignore the bad when I'm feeling bad. I go, no, positive all the time. No, I feel the bad as well. But I think because I sit in the bed and I feel it and I work through it, makes the good so much more sweeter. And that's why I feel so much more gratitude when I wake up every single day. When I go out into this world, I live through gratitude. I enjoy myself. I enjoy the experiences that I'm having, and I try to add value everywhere I go. And maybe for some people, it is not value because it reminds you that you are not having a good time here. But I will not stop having a good time. I will not stop dancing because you are miserable. I invite you to join me instead of trying to stomp on my toes and stop me. I learned how to dance here. You can learn too. You can get out of your own way and have the happiness that you seek by not trying to people please other people. So if I have to take the path less traveled, and that means that my life is difficult and I get the title of difficult and people say awful things about me, even though I hadn't done anything but just be myself and ask questions, and I'm not hurting anyone and I'm not doing anything against anybody else's will. I mean, something I say may hurt your feelings, but again, it's not personal. I never said it to hurt your feelings. Why? What do I gain from hurting your feelings? I become you if I do that. And why would I make a whole video if I'm you? I'm not. If I say something, it's because, again, I want you sharp to help sharpen me. We are each other's keepers. We are a community, but that doesn't mean that I have to lose me to be a part of this community. And you don't have to lose you to be a part of this community. We can all grow and expand and learn and develop and sharpen each other. It's not an either or. It's a both. It's an and in both. And so for me, it's like with all of this joy that I had for 2, 3 years, I just been so joyful. When Corona hit and everything was so bad, I felt guilty. I really felt survivor's remorse. I felt guilt because I was, having moments of just complete beautiful bliss. Like I would break out in gratitude and at the tears, and I just felt bad, and I continue to feel bad. Like you have what people want. You just had to work on it. And you have the tools to give people to work on it. And I think you should share. It's no fun if you're the only person having a good time. It was only a couple of thousand or 1 million and there's 7 billion people here. It's only 1 million having a good time. That's not fair. Put the techniques out so people can enjoy and everybody can be dancing together in harmony. But then you realize the world that we live in is so many miserable people. And my experience it's already difficult because I'm different. I think different. So it's like I have many experiences that most people don't have. And already I don't want to expose it like on a daily basis. Not on a daily basis. I don't want to say it like that. But like often I'm, in the principal's office. And so I don't want to expose. By exposing myself, I increase the rate of that. And I often wonder, like, if I put myself out there and I tell my story and I share with everyone, all the hate that I get back, will it actually decrease my happiness? Or will it increase my happiness? If serving this way, helping people get the happiness they seek, help them find the happiness they seek through their own internal will, through them, taking care of themselves, self-love, self-care, self-value. If I give them that, the other ones, will they make me miserable? And then we talk again about balances, Ebony. It's a matter of both. You will have people who want to say nasty things to you in larger scales now, since you are going on social media giving these tools. But you also get the opportunity to serve many more people, and both, what people call good and bad, negative, positive, light and shadow. All it's both here. It's a part of life, and so it for life or for your experiences in life to be so incivil. The only thing that you can do is help people, get the tools that you had, that you found when you were, experiencing incivility. And so now it's time for you to share, even though that means putting yourself out there and you risking ridiculed and criticized and reprimanded more. I don't really want to say reprimand, but they try to reprimand you more for just being who you are. Everyone says be yourself, but they don't really mean be yourself. They mean be a self that is acceptable to society. And we already know that there's only a couple of monoliths or archetypes or, different types of models to be the standard citizen, the gold star. Like, it's only certain models or mindsets that are deemed acceptable in society. So if you're born and you have a different idea, then you're outcast, you're ridiculed, and life is harder. But I'd rather have a life that was worth living and that was unique and authentic to me than go and when I'm alive and curious and growing and developing, then living a fake life, then trying to fit in, then trying to get people to accept me and to love me, even though I'm not even sure if they accept and love themselves. You can never trust people's secret thoughts. And so, again, I just decided that I'm going to live out loud. I'm going to be my best self. I'm going to show up. I'm going to love. I'm going to be authentic. I'm going to be, may show up crazy. I may show up natural. I may show up. But one thing for sure, you may not show up know how I'm going to show up. But one thing that is guaranteed is that I'm always going to show up for me. And in showing up for me, it means that I can show up for you and anybody else in this world, in the sense that of me being my best self is permission for everybody else to show up and be their best self. Me being my authentic self give people permission to be their authentic self. And when I have the courage to go out in the world in a Joker costume, just because that's how I'm feeling that day, because I have a lot going on, and this is an outlet. And it's not about other people, because I dress how I feel, that I can just be left alone with the madness. And unless the message you're sending to me is way to go for being your authentic self, way to go for being brave, for being courageous, for not caring what people think about you or going to say about you, then I don't want to hear your message. You can keep it to yourself. Everyone is allowed to think what they want to think. And you also allowed to say what you want to say. But do not get offended, or you even can get offended when I do not take it on. And that's another thing. People will say whatever they want to say to you, and when you do not take it on, they will get offended. As a global citizen, I have to consider everyone's feelings. And I have to do that to survive. But it doesn't mean that I have to care and I have to take it on and I have to change myself in order to make y'all feel comfortable. You shouldn't have to change yourself to make me feel comfortable. And I will never ask anything of you to change yourself for me. If I don't like something about you, it's my problem. And I shouldn't even care enough, because if it doesn't affect my everyday life, I should not care. As long as what you're doing is not hurting anyone else and it's not against someone else's will, then I should not care. So I want to send a message to everyone. Be brave. That's the way you begin to, see what you're worthy of, see what you're made of, see what your value, what you're valued at, see how, who you are, how you grow, develop, expand, stretch, grow. When you decide to start take care of yourself and start doing the things for you, even if society deems it unacceptable, as long as you are not physically hurting someone or doing something against their will. And I don't want to say indoor. Be you. That's what the world needs. There's so many monoliths out there that's easy to fill. There's only one you. If you go and be the monolith, then we're missing a vacant position for you. The best thing anyone could ever be, it reminds me of the book I was reading called, it was last week's book, The Go-Giver. And it talked about the best gift that you can ever give to this world is yourself. Is to be authentic to yourself. Nobody has gone through what you've gone through, like you gone through, when you gone through, with who you gone through. And even if all of those things happen, only you can interpret it and give it meaning. And no other person will interpret it and give it the meaning you do. We again keep talking about those secret thoughts. So mindset and perception is everything. So any experience is subjective. So it's up to you to make this experience work for you, so you enjoy your life, so you like yourself, so at the end of your life you are proud of who you showed up as, except and don't feel any regrets because you chose to please other people at the expense of yourself. So I personally do these videos for myself because I wish I had a lot of this messaging as I was growing up, and people kept telling me it was me. I wasted a lot of time trying to fit in, trying to, figure out what was so wrong with me, changing myself, trying to get people to feel comfortable. I wasted so much time, and I always wonder who I could have been if I had this information earlier. So I make these videos for me. No one knows what happened if we die. I mean, not if, when we die. No one knows what happened. And if I have to come back here, I want to find this information quicker. And everyone, likes it delivered differently. I don't know what your beliefs are, but for me, I do it for me. To be able to serve the world. So by serving me, I'm able to serve the world. And I hope that it's helpful to other people. I hope that people can resonate with it and, use it. And I hope that it's practical. But ultimately, I do it for myself. And I'm enjoying this experience because I'm loyal to, being responsible for myself and how this experience, unfolds. Now, I can't control anything, but what I can control is myself. And I make it my priority to learn and grow and develop to make sure that I am controlling myself the best way possible for the given situation. So I don't know if this resonates with you. Have you been called a troublemaker? Have you been called difficult? Did you spend your life trying to people please because people don't understand you and they keep telling you things that you don't think are true of yourself, but you may not quite really know because you hadn't done the work? Does any of this resonate with you? Share your story. Tell me, what it's like to be you in this world, because with 7 billion people, I imagine that there's 7 billion different experiences of what it's like to be in the world. If it's not, and it boiled down to anything less than 7 billion, then I, in my opinion, feel like we're doing something wrong. That the more people that we have with who experiences are the same means that there are some, holes in the system that maybe are not allowing people to be their best creative selves, which society ultimately benefits from. You never know who is the next, Mozart or Oprah or whoever. And so again, it's a matter of how can you show up and be your best self and enjoy your experience and live your life with no regrets. So I hope that helps. Have a great day.